The apartment on the 43rd floor wasn't a home, it was a holding cell for 5 ghosts. The air didn't smell like breakfast. It reeked of burnt coffee and ozone, the scent of lightning before it strikes. My 4 children weren't playing with toys. Kale was tracing patterns on the floor that turned into solid ice, while Elara's hair floated in a halo of static electricity. They call it motherhood. I call it asset management. Because when your toddlers can freeze a room or shatter windows with a scream, you don't raise them. You just try to survive them until the monsters who made them come knocking. The apartment smelled of burnt coffee and ozone. Elowen pressed her palm against the reinforced glass, feeling the cold seep through her skin like a warning. 43 floors below, the city sprawled in geometric precision, all chrome and carbon fiber, catching the last rays of a winter sun that gave no warmth. She'd chosen this building for its anonymity, a tower of transient executives and offshore accounts where no one asked questions about the woman who never left her unit. Her reflection stared back, hollow-eyed and sharp-boned. 32 years old, and she looked like she'd lived 50. The children had done that. Or rather, what the children were had carved away everything soft, leaving only the essential machinery of survival. Behind her, Kale sat cross-legged on the floor, his small fingers tracing patterns in the air. Where his hand moved, frost crystallized on the hardwood, spreading in fractal geometries too perfect to be natural. He was humming, that wordless tune they all shared, a frequency that made her molars ache. "Stop it," she said, without turning. Her voice had lost its maternal softness months ago, replaced by the flat efficiency of a handler managing volatile assets. The humming ceased. The frost remained. She checked her watch. 14 minutes until the next perimeter scan. The building's security systems were corporate-grade, designed to keep secrets in and competitors out, but they wouldn't stop what was coming. Nothing would. She'd known that since the night she'd found the tracking device embedded in Ryan's favorite stuffed rabbit, a transmitter so small it had taken a jeweler's loupe to confirm her paranoia wasn't madness. They'd found her again. The first sign was the elevator. Elowen had rigged the panel 3 weeks ago, splicing a redundant circuit that would alert her phone whenever someone overrode the residential lockout on their floor. The vibration against her hip was gentle, almost apologetic. Her blood turned to slush. Ryan, Elara. Cyan. She didn't raise her voice. Volume meant panic, and panic was contagion with children who could read the electrical impulses in her nervous system. Living room. Now, they came like summoned spirits. Ryan from the kitchen where she'd been stacking blocks in impossible towers, Elara from the bathroom where the water had been running cold for 20 minutes, Cyan from his corner where he'd been staring at the wall with that unblinking focus that meant he was listening to something in the building's infrastructure. 4 faces, 4 pairs of eyes in shades of amber and grey, 4 heartbeats that synchronized the moment they stood together. "We have to go," Elowen said. She was already moving, grabbing the go bag from behind the false panel in the hallway closet. Passports, 3 sets, all forged. Cash in 5 currencies. A burner phone still in its wrapper. The Glock 19 she'd bought from a man who'd asked no questions and expected none. The bad men. Elara's voice was a whisper, but her hair had started to lift at the ends, static electricity building in the air around her small frame. Maybe, probably. Elowen shoved the gun into her waistband, felt its weight settle against her spine like a cold promise. "We're not waiting to find out." She pulled up the building schematic on her tablet, the one she'd memorized but needed to see anyway, needed the concrete reality of exits and stairwells. The service elevator. 43 floors down through the maintenance shaft, then the loading dock, then the lights went out. Not A flicker, not a brownout. One moment the apartment was bathed in the sterile glow of LED fixtures, the next it was drowning in darkness so complete it felt textured, alive. "Mommy." Cyan's voice small and terrified. Then the windows exploded. Not shattered. Exploded. Outward. As if something inside Cyan had reached critical mass and detonated, turning reinforced glass into 1,000 glittering projectiles that hung suspended in the air for one impossible heartbeat before scattering into the void. The wind hit like a fist. Arctic air screaming through the gap, carrying the smell of diesel and distant snow. Elowen grabbed Cyan, felt his small body rigid with terror, his scream still locked in his throat. "It's okay. It's okay. I've got you." Lies. Necessary lies. She pulled him close, shielding his face from the wind, while her mind calculated trajectories and consequences. Glass raining down on the street below. Witnesses. Cameras. The kind of attention that would bring more than corporate extraction teams. Kale and Ryan had pressed themselves against the interior wall, their hands clasped. The frost was spreading faster now, creeping across the floor in branching patterns that looked almost like script, some ancient language written in ice. Elara stood alone in the center of the room, her hair a corona of static, her eyes reflecting light that wasn't there. "They're in the building," she said. Not a child's voice. Something older, colder. "I can feel them. Metal and meat, and something else. Something hungry." Elowen's hand found the gun. The weight was inadequate. Laughable. What good were bullets against whatever had sent these children into existence? Against the corporate machinery that wanted to reclaim its investment. The door to the apartment didn't break. It simply ceased to be locked. The electronic mechanism surrendering with a soft click that was somehow more terrifying than any forced entry. She raised the gun, aimed at shadows. The man who stepped through wore a suit that cost more than her yearly salary. Charcoal gray, cut with surgical precision. His shoes made no sound on the hardwood. His face was forgettable in the way that expensive faces were, symmetrical, ageless, empty of anything resembling human warmth. "Yarrow." His voice was modulated, pleasant. "We've been looking for you." She didn't let him finish. The Glock barked once, twice, 3 times. Center mass, the way she'd practiced at the range during the children's nap time, imagining this exact moment. The bullets hit. She saw the impact, saw his body jerk. He smiled. "We really must insist." Cyan screamed, not in fear this time. In rage. In power that had been building since the moment of his unnatural birth. The remaining furniture lifted off the floor, chairs, table, the couch that weighed 200 pounds. They hung suspended, trembling, then launched themselves at the man in the doorway with enough force to pulverize bone. He raised one hand. The furniture stopped, dropped. "Enough," he said. Elowen grabbed Cyan, grabbed Kale, screamed for Ryan and Elara to run. The service stairs, the loading dock, any direction that wasn't here. They made it to the hallway, made it to the emergency exit. Made it down 3 flights before the lights came back on, and she heard the footsteps above and below, coordinated, professional, closing like a trap. The loading dock was empty. No, not empty. A car idled in the shadows, matte black, lines too sleek to be civilian. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall, pale, wearing a suit that made the other one look like a costume. His eyes caught the light and held it, reflecting it back in shades of silver and ice. "Elowen Yarrow," he said. His voice was silk over razors. "I believe we need to talk about my children." The world tilted. The children's hands tightened in hers. Behind them, footsteps. Ahead, this stranger who knew her name and called the quadruplets his. She raised the gun one more time, knowing it was useless, knowing everything was useless. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Lower the weapon," he said. "I'm not here to harm you. I'm here because you're the only thing standing between them and a fate worse than death. And I'm afraid, Miss Yarrow, that your time as their sole protector has just expired." The gun felt like a lead weight in Elowen's hand. Her finger trembled against the trigger guard, every nerve screaming that this man, this creature, could move faster than she could fire. The loading dock's fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting his pale features in harsh relief. He didn't blink, didn't breathe, just stood there with that razor-thin smile, waiting. "Lower it," he repeated, softer this time. Please, the please undid her more than any threat could have. Her arm dropped, muscles burning from the sustained tension. The quadruplets pressed against her legs, 4 small bodies radiating heat and terror in equal measure. She could feel their hearts hammering through their thin pajamas. "Who are you?" Her voice cracked on the words. "Stellan Vance." He took a single step forward. The children flinched. He stopped immediately, hands rising in a gesture of surrender that looked wrong on someone who radiated such absolute authority. "And I'm their father." The world lurched sideways. Elowen's free hand found the loading dock's metal railing, cold and solid and real. "That's impossible. Their father is dead." His eyes, those impossible silver eyes, found hers and held. "Yes, I was. For 5 years I was as good as dead. But I'm here now, and they're in danger from people who will use them as weapons or destroy them trying." Footsteps echoed in the stairwell behind them. Multiple sets, descending with military precision. Stellan's jaw tightened, the first crack in his controlled facade. "We don't have time for this conversation here." He gestured to the car. "My team is securing the building, but there are more coming. Always more. Get in the car, Elowen. Let me protect what's mine." "What's mine?" The possessiveness in those words sent ice down her spine. But the footsteps were getting closer, and Cale was shaking so hard his teeth chattered, and she'd spent 4 years keeping these children safe through instinct and improvisation and sheer desperate love. Sometimes survival meant trusting the monster you could see over the ones hunting in the dark. "If you hurt them," she started. "I won't." He moved to the car's rear door, opened it with a smooth economy of motion. The interior was black leather and tinted windows and the faint scent of something expensive and cold. "I give you my word. For whatever that's worth to you right now, it was worth nothing. Everything." She bundled the children into the back seat, their small hands clutching at her sweater, her arms each other, slid in after them and pulled the door shut just as the stairwell door burst open. Stellan was already behind the wheel. The engine purred to life. Too quiet, too smooth, like a predator's breath. They pulled out of the loading dock as 3 men in tactical gear spilled into the space they'd just vacated. Elowen twisted to look back, saw them raising weapons, saw the rear window was bulletproof. The shots that should have shattered glass instead left spider-web cracks that the material seemed to absorb and disperse. Stellan took a corner at a speed that should have sent them into a roll. The car handled it like a guided missile. "Seat belts," he said calmly. "All of you." Elowen fumbled with the straps, helped Ilara and Cyan with theirs, while Cal and Ryan managed their own with trembling fingers. The city blurred past the windows, streetlights and closed storefronts, and the occasional late-night pedestrian who'd never know they'd just witnessed an extraction. Where are we going? She kept her voice steady for the children's sake, even as her pulse hammered against her ribs. Somewhere they can't follow. Somewhere I can explain. He met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Somewhere you can decide if you believe me. The drive took 20 minutes that felt like hours. They left the industrial district behind, climbed into the hills where the city's wealthy built their fortresses of glass and steel. The houses grew larger, set back from winding roads behind gates and walls and security systems that probably cost more than Elowen made in a year. Stellan's destination made those houses look like garden sheds. The gate was wrought iron and 15 feet high, set into stone walls that disappeared into landscaped darkness on either side. It opened silently as they approached. The driveway curved through grounds that could have swallowed her entire apartment building, past trees older than the city itself, and gardens that probably required a full-time staff. The house, mansion, estate, monument to wealth, rose against the night sky like something from a fever dream. Modern architecture softened by old-world stonework, floor-to-ceiling windows glowing with warm light, balconies and terraces that promised views of the entire city below. Stellan pulled into a garage that housed 6 other vehicles, each one worth more than everything Elowen had ever owned combined. Cut the engine. Sat for a moment in the sudden silence, his hands still on the wheel. "I know you're afraid," he said quietly. "I know you have no reason to trust me. But those children have been calling to me for months, in my sleep, in my waking hours. 4 voices, terrified and trying to be brave, reaching out for something they don't understand." He turned in his seat to face them fully. "They're bonded to me. Blood of my blood, and someone is trying to kill them because of what they represent." Cale made a small sound. Elowen pulled him closer, felt his tears soaking through her sweater. "What do they represent?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Hope, power, the future of my kind." Stellan's expression was unreadable, and a threat to everyone who wants to keep things exactly as they are. "Come inside. Please, let me show you what you're up against." The house was worse than the exterior promised. Elowen had cleaned corporate offices, scrubbed floors in mansions where she wasn't allowed to make eye contact with the residents. This was different. This was wealth so absolute it became invisible. Every surface perfect, every detail considered, the kind of luxury that whispered rather than shouted. Stellan led them through a foyer, with a ceiling 2 stories high, past artwork that might have been original and probably was, into a living room that could have held her entire apartment twice over. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, a carpet of light spreading to the horizon. The furniture was leather and dark wood, arranged around a fireplace where flames danced without any visible source of fuel. "Sit," Stellan said. "I'll make coffee or tea. Do the children drink?" "Hot chocolate," Elowen heard herself say, "if you have it." He nodded and disappeared through a doorway. She sank onto a sofa that probably cost more than her car, the children arranging themselves around her like satellites orbiting a sun. Ryan's head on her shoulder. Ilara pressed against her side. Cale and Cyan bracketing her, their small bodies tense and ready to run. The room smelled like leather and old books, and something else, something cold and mineral, like stone deep underground. Elowen's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs, tried to breathe, tried to think. This man claimed to be their father, claimed to have been dead, claimed they were bonded to him through blood, and something deeper than blood. Every rational cell in her body screamed that this was insane, impossible, a trap. But she'd seen furniture fly across a room at the children's command, seen fear in the eyes of armed men when they looked at 4 small faces, seen things in the past 4 years that didn't fit into any rational framework. Stellan returned with a tray, real china cups, steam rising in delicate curls. He set it on the coffee table with careful precision, handed her a mug of coffee that smelled like heaven, distributed smaller cups of chocolate to the children with movements that were almost hesitant. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted, settling into a chair across from them. "I don't know how to be what they need, but I know what's hunting them, and I know I'm the only one with the resources to keep them safe." "What's hunting them?" Elowen wrapped her hands around the mug, let the heat seep into her frozen fingers. "Synthetics." The word came out like a curse. A faction within Vance Global that believes the old ways are dying, that we need to evolve or face extinction. They've been experimenting with bloodlines, trying to create something new, something stronger. His eyes found the children, and something flickered in their silver depths. They succeeded. 4 years ago they succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. And then I found out what they'd done. The coffee turned to ash in Elowen's mouth. What did they do? They took my blood, my genetic material, combined it with a human woman who'd been prepared, enhanced, made into a vessel. His voice was flat, emotionless, but his hands gripped the chair arms hard enough that the leather creaked. The pregnancy should have killed her. The children should have been monsters. Instead, they were perfect. 4 perfect children with abilities that shouldn't exist. And synthetics wanted to raise them as weapons. Cyan whimpered. Elowen's arm tightened around him. "I shut down the program," Stellan continued. "Destroyed the facility. Scattered the researchers, but I couldn't find the children. Couldn't find any trace of them. And then I was betrayed by someone I trusted, poisoned with something that put me in a coma for 5 years. When I woke up 3 months ago, the first thing I felt was them, 4 minds reaching out, calling to something in my blood." "The mother," Elowen said. Her throat was tight. "What happened to her?" "Dead. Childbirth complications, or so the records said." His eyes were ancient, haunted. "I think synthetics killed her. Easier to control the children without a mother's protection. They didn't count on someone like you." The weight of his gaze was almost physical. Elowen forced herself to meet it. "Someone like me. Someone who'd fight the world to keep them safe. Someone they'd bond to almost as strongly as they bonded to me." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You feel it, don't you? The connection. The way you always know when they're afraid or hurt. The way they can find you in a crowd. Sense your emotions before you speak them." She did. God help her, she did. 4 years of knowing when Kale had nightmares before he cried out. Of finding Ilara in hide and seek without looking. Of feeling Ryan's joy and Cyan's fear like they were her own emotions. "What are they?" she whispered. "Mine." The possessiveness was back, stronger now. "And yours." "And themselves." "They're children, Elowen. Children who deserve a chance to grow up without being hunted, without being used. And I'm asking you to trust me long enough to give them that chance." The fire crackled. Outside, the city sprawled in its bed of lights, oblivious to the conversation happening in this room. Elowen looked at the children. Her children, no matter what blood said, and saw their exhaustion, their fear, their desperate need for safety. "How long?" she asked. "How long until they're safe?" "I don't know." At least he was honest. Synthetics has resources, connections. They've been operating in the shadows of Vance Global for decades, but I'm taking back control of the company, rooting them out. It will take time, and in the meantime, you stay here, all of you, under my protection. In my home. He stood, moved to the windows, his reflection ghostly against the darkness beyond. I have security that makes Fort Knox look like a garden shed, resources that can track threats before they materialize, and I have something Synthetics doesn't. What? He turned, and his smile was all teeth and cold promise. I have you. The woman who kept them hidden and safe for 4 years through nothing but determination and love. The woman they trust more than anyone in the world. Work with me, Elowen. Help me understand them. And I swear on everything I am, I will burn Synthetics to the ground before I let them touch these children again. The vow hung in the air between them, heavy with weight and consequence. Elowen felt the children's attention on her, waiting for her decision, felt the exhaustion in her bones, the fear that had been her constant companion for 4 years, the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to do this alone anymore. 1 week, she said. We stay for 1 week. You prove you can keep them safe. Prove you're who you say you are. And then we decide. Together. Together, Stellan agreed. I'll have rooms prepared. You'll have your own wing, privacy, anything you need. And tomorrow, I'll show you exactly what we're up against. He kept his word. The wing he gave them was larger than most houses. 4 bedrooms for the children, a master suite for Elowen, a common room with toys and books and everything children could want. The beds were too soft, the sheets too fine, but the children fell asleep within minutes of being tucked in, their small bodies finally surrendering to exhaustion. Elowen stood in the doorway of her room, looking out at the city below, and tried to process everything that had happened. 24 hours ago, her biggest worry had been making rent. Now she was living in a mansion with a man who claimed to be a vampire, protecting children who could move objects with their minds, running from a conspiracy that wanted to turn them into weapons. A knock at the door. Soft, respectful. She opened it to find Stellan standing in the hallway, changed into casual clothes that somehow made him look more dangerous rather than less. I wanted to check, he said. Make sure you had everything you needed. We're fine. She didn't move from the doorway, didn't invite him in. Thank you. He nodded, started to turn away, stopped. Elowen, what you've done for them, keeping them safe, keeping them together, keeping them human, despite everything. I can never repay that, but I can try, and I will. They're not weapons, she said fiercely. They're children. They like stories and hot chocolate and drawing pictures. Kale wants to be a veterinarian. Ryan loves music. Ilara collects rocks. Cyan is afraid of the dark but won't admit it. They're people, not tools. I know. His voice was soft, almost gentle, and I'll do everything in my power to make sure they stay that way. He left. Elowen closed the door, leaned against it, and finally let herself shake. Let herself feel the terror and relief and desperate hope warring in her chest. Let herself wonder if she'd just made the best decision of her life or signed all their death warrants. The week passed in a blur of luxury and tension. Stellan kept his distance, giving them space to adjust, while his security team, discreet, professional, armed to the teeth, patrolled the grounds. He showed her the files on Synthetics, thick folders full of names and dates and experiments that made her stomach turn. Showed her the evidence of his 5-year absence, medical records and security footage that proved his story. Showed her, slowly, carefully, that he was telling the truth. The children warmed to him gradually. Kakil first, drawn by Stellan's quiet patience. Then Ilara, who demanded stories about the house and its history. Rian and Cyan held back longer, but even they couldn't resist when Stellan converted one of the rooms into a music studio, instruments and equipment that made Rian's eyes go wide with wonder. Elowen watched it all, torn between relief and something that felt dangerously like jealousy. These were her children. She'd raised them, protected them, loved them, and now this stranger was winning their trust with resources she could never match. "You're not losing them." She jumped. Stellan had appeared beside her without a sound, watching the children play in the garden below. His presence was warm despite the cold perfection of his features. "I didn't say you didn't have to." He glanced at her, and something in his expression was almost vulnerable. "They love you. That won't change because I'm here. If anything, it makes you more valuable to them. You're the constant, the safe harbor. I'm just the storm they're learning to weather." "Poetic," she said dryly. "I've had a long time to practice." A ghost of a smile. "Elowen, I meant what I said. We're in this together. I'm not trying to replace you. I'm trying to give them what they need. Both of us are." The moment stretched. Elowen felt something shift between them, some barrier cracking. She'd been so focused on protecting the children from him that she hadn't considered he might be trying to protect them too, that they might want the same thing. "Okay," she said quietly. "Together." His smile was real this time, reached his eyes and made them almost warm. "Together." The attack came on the 8th day. Elowen woke to alarms screaming through the house, red lights pulsing in the hallway. Stellan was at her door before she could reach it, dressed in black tactical gear, his face a mask of cold fury. "Stay with the children," he ordered. "Lock the panic room door. Don't open it for anyone but me." "What's happening?" "They found us." He was already moving, pulling weapons from hidden panels in the walls. "Synthetics. They're breaching the perimeter. My team will handle it, but I need you safe. All of you safe. Go. Now." She ran, gathered the children from their beds, their sleepy confusion turning to terror as the alarms registered. The panic room was hidden behind a bookcase in the common room, steel reinforced and stocked with supplies. She herded them inside, sealed the door, and waited in the darkness while the world exploded outside. It took 3 hours. 3 hours of muffled sounds, gunfire, shouting, something that might have been screaming. 3 hours of holding 4 terrified children and promising them everything would be okay while having no idea if it was true. When the door finally opened, Stellan stood on the other side, blood on his clothes, exhaustion in his eyes, but alive, whole. "It's over," he said. "They're gone. You're safe." Elowen wanted to believe him, wanted to collapse into the relief flooding her system. But she'd learned long ago that safety was temporary, that threats could come from anywhere. She was right to be cautious. The man who appeared in the doorway behind Stellan moved with casual confidence, his suit immaculate, despite the chaos of the past hours. Silver hair, cold eyes, a smile that promised pain. "Actually," Victor Crane said, pulling a sheaf of papers from his jacket, "I'm afraid no one here is safe. Especially not those children. You see, I have documentation proving they're products of Vance Global's research division, which makes them company property. And I'm here to collect what belongs to the board." The cold metal of the panic room door pressed against Elowen's palm as she stepped forward, positioning herself between Victor Crane and the children clustered behind her. The papers in his hand might as well have been a death sentence, legal jargon transformed into weapons sharper than any blade. "Those documents are forgeries." Stellan's voice carried no emotion, but Elowen felt the temperature drop 3 degrees. The lights flickered. "You know they are. Prove it in court." Victor's smile widened. "Which will take months. Years, perhaps. And in the meantime, the board has voted. Protective custody. They're calling it. For the children's safety, of course." Kale's hand found Elowen's small fingers gripping tight. She could feel all four of them pressed against her back, their breathing synchronized in that eerie way that still unsettled her. Not now. She couldn't think about the strangeness now. "You won't touch them." The words came out steady, despite the terror clawing up her throat. "I won't have to," Victor gestured, and two security personnel appeared in the doorway. Not Stellan's people. Their uniforms bore the synthetics logo. "The law will do it for me. Unless, of course, Mr. Vance would like to make this easier. Sign over controlling interest in the biotech division, and I'm sure we can find a way to make these documents disappear." Stellan moved then, faster than human eyes should track. He was between Victor and the children before Elowen's next heartbeat, and the air itself seemed to bend around him. The overhead lights exploded in sequence, raining glass that stopped mid-fall and hung suspended like frozen rain. "Get out of my home." Victor didn't flinch. "Kill me, and you prove everything the board suspects about you. They'll take the children anyway. You'll be hunted. She'll be arrested as an accomplice." His gaze slid to Elowen. "Think carefully about your next move, Stellan. You've hidden what you are for 2 centuries. Are you really willing to throw that away?" The glass shards clattered to the floor. Stellan's shoulders tensed, and Elowen saw the calculation happening behind his eyes. The terrible mathematics of impossible choices. "The gala," she said quietly. "Tomorrow night." Both men turned to look at her. The Vance Global Charity Gala. 500 guests. Every major media outlet in the city. Her mind raced, piecing together fragments of overheard conversations, documents she'd archived, the careful way Stellan had always maintained his public image. "You want a spectacle, Victor? Let's give you one. We'll settle this in front of witnesses. All of it." Stellan's warning carried an edge of desperation. "He's right. If this happens in the shadows, we lose." She met Victor's cold stare. "But if it happens in public, with cameras rolling, you can't make us disappear. Neither can the board." Victor's smile turned calculating. "Interesting. You're proposing we air all our dirty laundry, including the nature of those children, what they can do. I'm proposing we let the truth speak for itself." Her voice didn't shake. "One night, public forum, and may the best argument win." The silence stretched. Then Victor laughed, the sound like ice cracking. "Done. Tomorrow night, then. I do hope you're prepared for the consequences." He turned to leave, paused at the threshold. "Oh, and Stellan, do try to control yourself. It would be a shame if the children saw what you really are before the grand reveal." The security personnel followed him out. The door closed, the locks engaged. Elowen's knees buckled. Stellan caught her before she hit the floor, his arms solid and cold around her waist. That was either brilliant or suicidal. Probably both. She was shaking now, the adrenaline crash hitting hard. Behind her the children were silent, watching with those 2 old eyes. "Mom?" Elara's voice was small. "What's going to happen?" Elowen turned, gathered all 4 of them close. Their bodies were warm against hers, hearts beating in that strange unison that had become familiar. "Tomorrow night, we're going to show everyone the truth, and we're going to do it together." "All of it?" Kale asked. "Even the scary parts." She looked at Stellan over their heads, saw the fear there, carefully hidden but present, fear of exposure, fear of loss, fear of becoming the monster the world would call him. "All of it," she confirmed. "No more hiding." The gala preparations consumed the next 20 hours. Elowen moved through the penthouse in a daze, helping the children dress in formal clothes that felt like armor, watching Stellan make phone calls in 3 languages, while his hands remained perfectly steady. She'd seen him face corporate raiders and hostile takeovers with less tension in his shoulders. The ballroom glittered. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across 500 guests in designer gowns and tailored suits. Elowen felt their stares as she entered with the children, Stellan's hand warm against the small of her back despite the chill of his skin. The whispers started immediately. Who was she? Where had these children come from? What was Vance playing at? Victor Crane held court near the stage, surrounded by board members and journalists. His smile was predatory as he watched them approach. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, voice carrying across the sudden hush. "I believe we're all here for the same reason, Mr. Vance has promised us transparency. So let's begin with a simple question." He pulled out those damned papers again. These 4 children, genetic anomalies, documented subjects of illegal experimentation. Mr. Vance, would you care to explain to our guests exactly what you've been hiding in your research facilities? Cameras swung toward them. Elowen felt the children press closer, their fear a palpable thing. Rian's hand found hers, and suddenly she felt it, that strange connection they shared, amplified by stress. Her vision doubled, tripled, and she was seeing through 8 eyes at once, feeling 4 hearts racing in synchronization with her own. "They're not experiments." Stellan's voice cut through the chaos. "They're my children." The ballroom erupted. Questions shouted from every direction, cameras flashing like lightning. Victor's smile turned triumphant. "Children you created in a laboratory. Children with abilities no human should possess. Shall we demonstrate?" He nodded to his security team. They moved fast. Reaching for Kyle, Elowen threw herself forward on instinct, placing her body between them and the child. "Don't you dare." The world exploded. Not literally. But the sensation was the same, a detonation of power that sent every electronic device in the room into screaming failure. Phones died. Cameras sparked and went dark. The chandeliers swung wildly, crystals singing a discordant note. And at the center of it all stood Stellan, his eyes blazing with light that shouldn't exist, shadows pooling at his feet like living things. "You want the truth." His voice resonated with something ancient, something that made every primitive instinct in Elowen's body scream danger. "Here it is. I am not human. I haven't been human for 237 years. And yes, those children carry my genetic legacy. But they are not weapons. They are not property. They are mine. And I will burn this entire city to ash before I let you take them." The shadows rose. Actual shadows, peeling themselves from walls and floors, reaching toward Victor with hungry intent. Guests screamed and stampeded toward the exits. Victor's security team backed away, their training useless against something that shouldn't exist. Elowen felt the children's terror spike through their connection, felt their power surge in response, wild and uncontrolled. The windows cracked. The floor trembled. "Stellan," she kept her voice level, stepping toward him instead of away. "Stellan, look at me." Those blazing eyes found hers. For a moment she saw the monster there, the predator that had survived centuries by being stronger and faster and more ruthless than anything else in the darkness. Then she saw him, the man who'd held Cyan through nightmares, who'd learned to braid Elara's hair, who'd taught Kale chess and let Ryan win at cards. "They're watching," she said quietly. "The children, they're scared." The shadows hesitated. Stellan's gaze shifted past her to where the 4 of them huddled together, their eyes wide and glowing with that same unnatural light. In that moment, they looked exactly like what Victor claimed, experiments, aberrations, things that didn't belong. Then Cale spoke. "Dad?" One word, trembling and small and completely human despite everything. The shadows collapsed. The light in Stellan's eyes dimmed. He dropped to his knees, and suddenly he was just a father, reaching for his terrified children with shaking hands. "I'm sorry." His voice broke. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to frighten you." They crashed into him, all four at once, clinging with desperate strength. Elowen knelt beside them, wrapping her arms around the whole tangled mass of her family, while the world watched through the few cameras that had survived, broadcasting this moment to millions. Victor Crane stood frozen. His victory turned to ash, because the footage would show everything: the threat to children, the corporate conspiracy, and yes, the impossible truth of what Stellan was. But it would also show this: a father protecting his family, a mother standing between her children and harm, 4 kids who just wanted to be safe. The narrative he'd tried to craft crumbled in real time. Security, real security. Stellan's people flooded the ballroom. Police followed. In the chaos of statements and arrests and legal maneuvering, Elowen held her family together and watched the sun rise through the broken windows. They went home as dawn painted the sky pink and gold. The penthouse felt different now, exposed in ways that had nothing to do with the shattered glass or damaged walls. Everything had changed. The carefully constructed lies, the protective anonymity, all of it gone. Stellan stood at the window, watching the city wake. Elowen came to stand beside him, their shoulders touching. "The board will come for you," she said quietly. "The government may be worse. I know. We'll fight them." He turned to look at her then, and his eyes were just eyes again, grey and tired and infinitely grateful. "We..." She took his cold hand in hers. "All of us, together." Behind them, the children slept in a nest of blankets on the living room floor, their breathing finally synchronized in peace rather than fear. Morning light touched their faces, making them look young and innocent and perfectly, impossibly human. Outside, the world was waking to impossible truths. Inside, a family held each other close and faced the uncertain future with something that felt dangerously like hope. The city hummed below. The sun climbed higher, and in the ruins of their old life, something new began to grow.